Hi, this is Joy at Ben Franklin in Bonney Lake, and today we're going to show you how to make antique buttons using embossing powder. Okay, so the first things we're going to show you is all the tools we're going to use. I'm just using some plain white buttons, but really since we're going to be embossing them, you can use any color button because you'll be covering the entire surface. So just a plastic button, and I'm using an embossing powder, and you can use any color you want to. You can even mix them. This is a distress embossing powder or golds, so any of the colors that you're wanting to use. One of my favorite ones is the Frontage from Stampendous, and these are just amazing embossing powders. So we're going to be using the aged silver embossing powder today for the button we're going to make. So the first thing you're going to do is take an embossing pad, which mine looks really gross, but it's you just put your button face down into the pad and get it all nice and covered with the embossing ink. And then take your button. I like to put mine in a little container so that my embossing powder doesn't go everywhere. And just cover your button with the powder. Take your finger and kind of make sure it's all on there. And then I like to use a pair of tweezers to kind of shake it off and hold it so it doesn't hurt my fingers. And then you're going to use a heat tool, and this is important for embossing, that it's a heat tool, not a hair dryer or any other implement, but a heat tool. And we're just going to emboss it real quick. Okay, so it's done melting. This only takes less than a minute to melt all the embossing powder, and then I just release it, and as you can tell on the sides it's still white, and so I'm going to show you a little trick how to get the sides done. I just take the button and roll it in the embossing ink. You can see that. Make sure it's real nice and covered, and if you've missed any spots you can always go back and use the embossing ink and embossing powder again. And we're just going to take a pile of it and just kind of roll the button in. So it's nice and covered. And then I'm going to show you a little trick on how to do this without getting your fingers burnt. I just took a little piece of paper and put a little piece of adhesive on the back, and then attach it to the back of my button so that because you don't want it to, the air will make it move, you don't want to burn your fingers. And it's all done. You have to let that cool for a second before you touch the edges so that it doesn't take the embossing part off. And then it's all done. And so you notice it's not sticking to the mat because I'm using a non-stick craft mat from Ranger, and it's one of my favorite surfaces to craft on because everything comes off of it. So if you melt something on here, you just scrape it right off. So that's a quick and easy way to antique and change the color of your plain buttons. And this is Joy at Ben Franklin Bonney Lake. Thanks for joining us.